We're going to be learning today Daf Tzadik Hey. We're starting towards the bottom. Okay, I'm sorry. We're going to learn today where we're holding. The very last line of Tzadik Daled Lamed Beis. So the Gemara here is talking about the subject of Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim. When you have an area that's covered with a roof and it does not have proper walls around it, so there's a machlokes of Rav and Shmuel whether you apply Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim. So Rav's shitta is, even if you have an area that doesn't have a single wall, you just have a roof with poles, which is called an achsadra, you say Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim. It's considered to be an enclosure. Shmuel says no. You don't say Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim in such a case. You have to have at least one wall. Then you could consider it to be enclosed with another 3 walls. But in a totally open area, you don't say Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim. So the Gemara is going to bring a few other examples and see how Rav and Shmuel's opinion works with this. Dam Rav Yehuda. Now Rav Yehuda said, we learned this before. Kaira arba mate b'chorba. If you have a kaira, a beam that's going across in a churba, in a broken down house, and it doesn't have walls anymore, but you just have a kaira that's going across. Did they bring the picture over here for this? They don't, but they probably had a picture before on Daf. This was a Gemara that we learned before on Daf Pei Vav. So if you want to see the picture, you could look on Daf Pei Vav on picture Tov Tzadik Tes. Okay, it's a pretty simple thing, but you have a broken down house, doesn't have proper walls around it, and there's a beam that's going across from one pole to another, which is wide 4 amas, or 4 tvachim that is actually. Picture Tov Tzadik Tes. Yeah, it's on Daf Pei Vav. So it's mater b'chorva. So it's going to be mater in the chorva, meaning that we're going to say Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim. Under that beam, because it's 4 tefachim wide, you can consider it like a Reshus HaYachid, because it's as if this little roof here, at 4 tefachim wide, comes down and encloses you in that area. This is what Rav Yehuda said. Rav Nachman said another halacha, which is in that same, the next picture over there, picture Tov Kuf. When you have a beam or a board that's above a pit of water, so he said in the name of Rabbi Baravua, Kaire Daled Mater B'mayim. When you have that board that's on top of the water, so it's as if it encloses, it's as if it creates a mechitza in the water. The issue that we had over there was that it was in the middle of 2 chatzeres. I want to be able to use the water, even though the water is mixing of the 2 chatzeres. But if you have a board on top of it, it's as if it is a mechitza inside the water. Mani, according to whose opinion does this go? Is it Rav's opinion? Is it Shmuel's opinion? Says the Gemara, Lahach lishna d'amrit be'eser loy pligi. According to the opinion that you said before, that when there's 10 or less than 10 amas between the poles, there's no machlokes. Everybody agrees that you say Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim. So be'eser v'divrei hakol. So over here as well, they were speaking about this kaira, or that's in this churva, or this board that's on top of the water. It's 10 amas or less, and everybody agrees that in this case you would say Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim. Lahach lishna d'amrit be'eser pligi. But according to the opinion that says that Shmuel will always argue. Shmuel does not hold of Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim if it's more than 10 amas wide and even less than that. He never holds of it in a case where there's no walls over here at all. So Kerav, these statements of Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman will only go with Rav, not with Shmuel. Shmuel never holds of Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim for 4 walls. Now the Gemara brings another case and wants to know if this is connected to the machlokes of Rav and Shmuel. Leime Abaye v'Rave beplukte the Rav and Shmuel kamiflagi. Should we say that there's this machlokes over here that we're going to quote now of Abaye v'Rave regarding a halacha by sukkah? Are they arguing in the same machlokes as Rav and Shmuel? So this is a machlokes that we already had quoted, and if you want to see the pictures for this, it's going to be from the pictures of Daf Tzadik Gimel, Tov Kuf Mem Vav, Tov Kuf Mem. The 2 pictures that we're going to use now is going to be Tov Kuf Mem Vav or Tov Kuf Mem Ches, according to Taisvus' opinion. Let's go with Tov Kuf Mem Vav, Rashi's opinion. So what's the case here? The Itmar. We learned the following halacha: Sichech al gabe achsadra, sheyesh lo patzimin. You placed schach on top of an achsadra. This achsadra is like you see in the picture over here. There's walls on both sides. But sheyesh lo patzimin means it also has poles going around and around. And between each pole going around, there's less than 3 tfachim of space between them. Ksheira, it's a kosher sukkah. What's the halacha when you have a fence around the sukkah and it's not a full fence? It's like one of these gates that they have today around porches, and these gates around porches, they just have these like poles, but it doesn't have 3 tvachim between each one of the poles. So that's a good sukkah. It's lavud. It's a proper mechitza. Ein lo patzimin. It does not have these patzimin, but it's like you see in picture Tov Kuf Mem Vav. You have 2 walls, and then you have this frame of a roof that's around it, and you put schach on top of that. Could you say pi tikri yored v'saisim from this frame? So this machlokes here, Abaye and Rava. So over here the Gemara says Abaye maksheira. Abaye says you can say pi tikri yored v'saisim, and it's kosher. V'Rava ma psula. Rava says it's possible. You don't say pi tikri yored v'saisim. Abaye maksheira ma pi tikri yored v'saisim. The frame, that board that's going across, it's as if it encloses it. Rava ma psula loya ma pi tikri yored v'saisim. You don't say pi tikri yored v'saisim in such a case. So, leime, shall we say, Abaye kerav, v'Rava k'Shmuel. Abaye is following the opinion of Rav, and Rav is following the opinion of Shmuel. Machlokes about pi tikri yored v'saisim. Okay, so actually, the case that we're speaking about in our Gemara, L'chaire, is not talking about this picture that I just showed you from the Gemara before, but we're speaking about a case where it doesn't have any walls at all. Because if it has walls, L'chaire, the machlokes of Rav and Shmuel is not shaykh to this, because they're only arguing in a case where you have to say pi tikri yored v'saisim for 4 walls. Right? Shmuel agrees that for 3 walls you could say pi tikri yored v'saisim. So L'chaire, the Gemara here is talking about a case where you have this achsadra, you just have 4 beams in the corners and the cross beams, this frame for the sukkah, and then you put schach on top of it. Now the question is, could I say pi tikri yored v'saisim with this frame? That's the machlokes of Abaye and Rava, and the Gemara wants to connect it to Rav and Shmuel.
There's no picture there.
No, they don't bring a picture for it. So the Gemara, no, it's not necessarily connected. Like, well, the Shmuel, let's start to drop before again. Alibu the Shmuel, kula malay pligi. According to Shmuel, nobody will argue that in this case you do not say pi tikri yored v'saisim. Ki pligi alibu de Rav. The argument here is whether Rav would hold of pi tikri yored v'saisim over here. Abaye kerav. Abaye holds like Rav that you say pi tikri yored v'saisim. And Rav's opinion is at kan lekama Rav hasam. When did Rav say pi tikri yored v'saisim? The hani michitzes lachsadra avidi. When it came to creating an achsadra and you want to make it a shusa yachid, you have a big carmelis, and then you make this achsadra and you want to separate it from the rest of the carmelis. So over there, Rav says it could become an enclosed area, the Shus Yachid, you're separating it from the rest of the area. Aval hacha, the hani mechitzis lav l'sukkah avidi, loy. But over here, in this case, this frame that was there was not made for the sukkah. You're not putting schach onto this frame, and you want to use this frame to say pi tikri yored v'saisim to create the walls of the sukkah. So for that, Rav held you can't say pi tikri yored v'saisim because they weren't created for the sukkah. So Rashi here says, even though usually when it comes to the walls of a sukkah, you don't have to make the mechitzas of a sukkah l'shma. The walls of the sukkah, whatever, if you have the walls of a house or whatever walls that were there, you can use it for a sukkah. It doesn't have to be made for the sukkah. But nevertheless, Rashi says, Kula hai mi eloy mekalinan. To use imaginary walls of pi tikri yored v'saisim that are not for the purpose, were not made for the purpose of the sukkah itself, so far Rav didn't go. So to say it l'gabi sukkah, Rav would agree, according to Abaye at least, that you don't say this. So there's an interesting question that the Mefarshim bring up. The Gemara said, according to Shmuel, for sure you can't say pi tikri yored v'saisim. But how many walls do you need for a sukkah? Only 2 walls and a tefach. 3 walls, 2 walls and a tefach. Shmuel holds you don't say pi tikri yored v'saisim only for 4 walls, but for 3 walls you do. So why wouldn't Shmuel say over here that consider it as if it has 3 walls? So the Sfas Emes says you must say that the pshat is Enochanami Shmuel holds you could say pi tikri yored v'saisim for 3 walls, but that's when there is 1 wall there. When there's a wall there, then you can add another 3 walls because it's already partially enclosed. If there's nothing there, so then you can't even say pi tikri yored v'saisim for 1 wall, for 2 walls, because there's nothing there. There's no enclosure at all. To be mechadash on enclosure when there's nothing, Shmuel doesn't hold of that. No, b'chlal. The concept of Shmuel is if you have 0 enclosure, you can't go use pi tikri yored v'saisim when you have 0.
So if you have 1 wall, you would have a kasha.
Yeah. If you have 1 wall, Shmuel would agree that you could use pi tikri yored v'saisim. So this is a sukkah with 1 wall. I think we paskin like this, but that's what would come out from here. Okay, Zok the Gemara Rabbi Yosi Aimer Imutarin. So going back to the Mishnah, Rabbi Yosi said you have a case where the lechi and a kaira, for example, of a mavoi fell down, or any other situation. There was a few situations in the Mishnah here where in the middle of Shabbos the Isser became an Isser, whether the wall of a chatzah fell or the lechi and a kaira of your mavi fell down in the middle of Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says hutra, the beginning of Shabbos it was mutter, it's good. Rabbi Yosi says no, it's aser. What Rabbi Yosi's lashon of the Mishnah actually was, if it's going to be aser next Shabbos, it's going to be aser this Shabbos. If it's mutter next Shabbos, it's mutter this Shabbos. So the Gemara first clarifies pshat in Rabbi Yosi. Ibayalu Rabbi Yosi le'aser or lahater. Rabbi Yosi is coming to say that it would be aser or mutter. Amar Rav Sheshes le'aser. Rabbi Yosi came to say that in the middle of Shabbos, if the lechi and kaira fell down, it's going to be aser. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yechanan le'aser. He meant to say that it's aser. Tanya Nami Yachi Amar Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi clearly spelled out Kshem Shasurin L'Asad Lavai. Just like it would be aser next Shabbos, Kach Asurin L'Oiser Shabbos. So too it's aser this Shabbos. Itmar, we learned in Abraisa, or we learned from the name of Amiraim of Chiyeh, but Rabbi Yosef Amar Halacha Rabbi Yosi. Paskin like Rabbi Yosi. Shmuel Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel says we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda that if at the beginning of the Shabbos it was mutter, it's mutter for the rest of Shabbos. Fragt the Gemara, mi Yama Shmuel Hachi. Did Shmuel say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda in this case? But Tanan, we learned previously a din of Rabbi Yehuda that he argued over there. And the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Yehuda Bamed, Varam Amurim Beiruvei Tchumen. So if you remember, the Mishnah there was talking about whether you have to get permission from a person when you're making an Eid of Tchumen for him. So Rabbi Yehuda says, yes, by Eid of Tchumen, you can't make an Eid of Tchumen for somebody without asking him. Aval Beiruvei Chatzeiris, Ma'avim Bein L'das, Bein Shalei L'das. Eid of Chatzeiris, you could include someone whether you have his permission or not. Why? If you shazach L'adam Shalei B'fanav, Ein Chavim Shalei B'fanav. By Eid of Chatzeiris, it's only a benefit. He's not losing, he's just giving him the option to be able to carry out of his house. Eid of Tchumen, though, he's losing because now his space to walk is going to be moved over in a different direction. Who says he wants that? That's what Rabbi Yehuda said. V'amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol. Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. So in that Mishnah he said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. And then he also said, V'lo yait ela kol makim sheshana Rabbi Yehuda be'Eiruvin, halacha kamaisai. Wherever Rabbi Yehuda says a halacha in Eiruvin, we always paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. That's what Shmuel said. Now, V'amar le Rav Chana bagatol, le Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel said Rav Chana from Baghdad asked Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, Afile b'mavoi shenitl kairasai oilechyav. Does that include the Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah that spoke about a case where the kaira or the lechi fell down in the middle of Shabbos that you paskin like Rabbi Yehuda as well? V'amalei, and Rav Chana answered him, no, be'Eiruvin amarti lach. Only regarding those Mishnayos where Rabbi Yehuda says as halacha regarding Eiruvin. But v'loi b'mechitzais, lechi and kaira is a different concept. It's not an Eiruvin. It's an enclosure of a mechitza. And over there the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. So we see clearly that he said that Rabbi Shmuel did not paskin like Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah regarding the lechi and kaira that fell in the middle of Shabbos. And before we said that Shmuel said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara answers, it depends. I heard from Shmuel himself. It depends. In a case where in the middle of Shabbos the lechi and kaira falls down, but you're talking about a mavoi that's open to a karmelis. So to carry out from your mavoi to this karmelis is only ism d'Rabbanan. So because it's only ism d'Rabbanan and this happened in the middle of Shabbos, we're makel to allow you to continue carrying on that Shabbos. When it said that Shmuel does not paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, he paskins like Rabbi Yosi that it's aser, even in the middle of Shabbos, it's because your mavi opened up into a Rishus HaRabim. So there's a ism and a Torah now to carry from here to the Rishus HaRabim. So therefore over here, he does not paskin like, it's a Rishus HaRabim that's open there, so he doesn't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, that's the Pshat in the Sinyan. Sagt the Mishnah weiter, Boina li al gabi shnei batim, a person that built a second floor and it's leaning on two houses and it goes across a Rishus HaRabim. This is picture Tov Kuf Samech Vav. Page Ayin Zayin Tov Kuf Samech Vav. So you have a overhang, whatever, or this house that's built over the Rishus HaRabim.
Good zoning laws.
Or the next picture, a bridge that crosses over a Rishus HaRabim. Okay, so what's the halacha? Metaltlin tachteim b'Shabbos divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says under these areas it's like a Rishus HaYachid. Even if it's going across the Rosh Hashanah, you can carry there. Chachamim, Eisrim. Chachamim say no, it's going across the Rosh Hashanah, you can't carry there. V'oid Amar Rabbi Yehuda, another halacha Rabbi Yehuda said, Ma'arvin l'mova yamafulish. A mova yamafulish, it's in other words a mavi that's open on both ends through, so you can make an Eida for it. In other words, you put up a lechi and a kaira on both openings, and then you can carry inside of it. Chachamim, Eisrim. Chachamim say you can't. According to the Chachamim, we learned this earlier towards the beginning of the Masechta. What do you have to do? You have to make a tzuras ha-pesach. You have to enclose one side. You can't have a mavi that's open from both sides. But Rabbi Yehuda says no. You just put up a lechi and a kaira and it's good enough. Amar Rabba loy teima. So the Gemara starts with the first part of the Mishnah when it talks about the house that was built, a second floor that's built over the Shus Rabim or a bridge. Loy teima haina teima de Rabbi Yehuda. Don't say the pshat in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is mishum de kasava beis mechitzes da'iraisa, because he holds you can carry in that area because there's walls on both sides, and 2 walls is good enough to make it the Rosh Hashanah. That's not the reason of Rabbi Yehuda. Ela mishum de kasava pi tikra yored v'saisem. In those cases, Rabbi Yehuda holds the reason is pi tikra yored v'saisem, that you have the roof that encloses this area. And the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda is that you use this concept of pi tikra yored v'saisim even in a Rosh Hashanah. You have so many people passing through. We had once before, if you remember, when we have an imaginary wall in a house and a roof, and you have an imaginary wall that we extend upward. So Shmuel said, but if you have so many people walking on the rooftop, I don't apply this concept of an imaginary wall because people are trampling over it. The chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda is, even in a Rosh Hashanah, so many people are walking there, I still say pi tikra yored v'saisim as if the area is enclosed and you can carry there.
So if you have an overpass and a shusarabim underneath, you can carry.
That's exactly what we're talking about. That's the gesha. Exactly. Gsharim amufulashim, an overpass. Yeah.
Not lalach, right?
No. We don't pass like Rabbi Yehuda. So this is the pshat and the reish of the Mishnah. Eisvei Abaya. So on this Abaya asked that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of the union of pi tikra yored. That 2 mechitzas makes it a mechitzah d'iraisa. We learned the feidish in Abraisa. Yes, Rabbi Yehuda. We had this quoted a few times. Rabbi Yehuda said, "Mi sheyesh lo shnei batim shnei tzidei Rosh Hashanah." You have 2 houses on both sides of the Rosh Hashanah, which creates 2 walls. So then, you can carry there. You put the lechi. You look in the picture. You put the lechi on the same side of the street, on 2 sides of the house, and that's enough to be able to carry through this Rosh Hashanah.
Why do you need 2 lechis for?
Because you have to have a heker on both sides. That's a midrabanan, just like by a mavaya mafulish. You have to have a lechi on each side. So even though it's a Rosh Hashanah, but it's minatayr, it's a Rosh Yachid.
Carry between the lechis?
Yeah.
Only between the lechis?
Yeah. Midrabanan though. Minatayr, it's already considered to be a Rosh Yachid. Elamai, in order to separate it from the rest of the Rosh Hashanah, you shouldn't, just like by a mavo, you have to put up a lechi, so you have to put up a lechi here. But really it's considered to be a Rosh Yachid. Okay, that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Amrullah, the Chachamim disagreed with him and said, no, Eima Arvin Rosh Hashanah bekach. You can't just put up a lechi and carry there. So what do you see right over here? That the Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is 2 walls makes a Rosh Hashanah. So we can say that that's the pshat and the reisha of our Mishnah as well. That when you have the overpass, that the reason why it's a Rosh Hashanah is not because of the overpass. It's because of the walls. You have 2 walls. Yeah, the 2 walls. So before we go weiter in the Gemara, Taisvis asks, what's with the Mishnah itself? Why is the Gemara bringing a raya to this from a Braisa? Didn't the Sefer of the Mishnah that we just learned say a Mavi Hamafulish? That by a Mavi Hamafulish you can put a lechi and you can carry there. So you see clearly in our Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda holds that 2 walls makes it a Rosh Hashanah. Why is it bringing from a Braisa? So Taisus answers, Taisus, the last Taisus of the Perek. Taisus says, no, I want to bring you a raya even regarding a real Rosh Hashanah. The Mishnah was speaking about a Mavi. Over here, the Chiddush is Rabbi Yehuda holds even in a regular Rosh Hashanah that's wide and people walk. Even there, Rabbi Yehuda holds that the 2 walls makes it a Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara answers back into the Gemara, Malay mahi in. From that Braisa, it's true. You have a clear raya that Rabbi Yehuda holds that 2 walls makes it a Rosh Hashanah. Meha lekala mishmamino. However, from our Mishnah, we can't prove this. That's all I meant to say. The pshat and the reisha of our Mishnah was not because of the 2 walls. It was because of the roof. Amar Ravashi masnisan nami deke. We can see this from our Mishnah as well. Mediktani ve'oid Amar Rabbi Yehuda ma'arvin b'mavia mefulish v'chachama ma'isrim. You have the reisha of the Mishnah regarding when it's an overpass, when there's a roof, and then there's the second case, and he says v'oid, an additional statement Rabbi Yehuda said regarding a mavia mefulish that you can rely on the two walls. V'chachama ma'isrim. If the reisha of the Mishnah is based on the fact that there's an overpass, so that's why the second case of the Mishnah is a new din. It's a new chiddush that he did not say in the first case. If the first part of the Mishnah is based on the idea that you have two mechitzas and the roof is irrelevant, it's the two mechitzas that he's relying on, what's the second point he's saying? He's repeating the same thing that he already said, that you can rely on two mechitzas. So Shema Mina, from here I see that in the first section of the Mishnah he was saying the halach of pitikri yered v'saisim, even in the Rishus Harabim. In the second chelik of the Mishnah he was telling you a halacha regarding relying on two walls for Rishus HaYachid. Two different things. Hadran halach kol gagos.
What is the Chachamim hold if there's a kernel is under the overpass?
So l'chayre you say pitikri yered v'saisim in a Carmelis. Only in a Rishus Harabim you don't. But l'chayre in a Carmelis you do, huh? Chayre, yeah. Chayre. We start a new Pedic now, and Taisvis interestingly points out regarding this new Pedic that it really should have come in Masechta Shabbos. Look in the first Taisvis of the Pedic here. He says that Hach Perkib Masechta Shabbos Havalila Misnig Abaytzais. It's a Pedic that does not discuss most parts. That discusses the Malach of Hoitzah, does not discuss not Erev Tchumen or Erev Chatzeres a little bit, but Ikir not. Taisa says because it mentions in the first Mishnah or in the end of the Perek, it mentions a little bit of Inyanim of Eiruvin, so it ended up over here. But really, it's Ha'ashlama of Masechta Shabbos. Talk to Mishnah. Hamaitze Tefillin. A person finds Tefillin on Shabbos outside in the field, and you don't want it to stay there, get ruined outside. Machnisan zug zug. You can bring in the Tefillin one pair at a time. In other words, put on the Tefillin one pair at a time and bring it in. You could put on two pairs of tefillin at a time and bring it in. When is this true? When it's yishanis. Yishanis means when you know for sure that it's actually tefillin. You can see how it's made and it has the kesher of the tefillin. You know for sure it's tefillin. But if it's new, in other words, it's something that you're not even sure it's tefillin. Yeah, they made in those times these kinds of kameis, Rashi says, that looked like tefillin, but it wasn't even necessarily tefillin. So then potter. So then you don't have to bring it in to protect it because you don't know what it's tefillin. Matzan svasim or krichais, you found them tied together or in bundles together, so then you don't carry it in either. Machshech alein, you just stay there until at night, umevian, and at night you bring it in. The Gemara will explain why you don't bring it in one pair at a time. We'll see in the Gemara. The sakana, if there's a sakana for you to stay in that area, you can't wait there, you're afraid. Rashi says, list them from robbers. So then, machasa, just cover these tefillin that are there, and you can leave that area. Rab Shimon says, you can pass over the tefillin, give the tefillin and carry it each time with less than dalet amos. The issue is that you're going to be carrying dalet amos. So give it to your friend, your friend will pass it over to another friend. Create a human chain of people and pass it over until you bring it into until you bring it into the chatzar chitzayna. Or really, you don't even need a human chain of people, the same person, you can just keep on carrying two people, keep on going, less than 4 amos. Similar would be a case where a woman gave birth to a baby outside in the field somewhere, and you want to bring the baby into the city on Shabbos. So you can't carry the baby. You can pass over the baby and bring him into the city, also with less than 4 amos, even 100 people. Rabbi Yehuda says similar thing. You have a barrel of food, you want to pass over to a far distance. You pass it from one person to another. You can take this barrel of food even outside of the tchum as well. So no, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, no, it doesn't go so far. The barrel of food is not allowed to be taken out any further than the tchum of the owner of the barrel. Just like the owner of the barrel has a certain tchum, 2,000 amos, the food, the owner of the barrel, the status of that tchum takes effect for the food as well, and you're not allowed to take it out of the tchum.
Aside from Eiruvin tchumen, he's saying you could do it to a chavis, not just a kid or a tefillin.
Correct, which is l'chayda something that is mamish needed to protect the tefillin of the baby. He's saying even food, exactly. That was Rabbi Yehuda's chiddush, exactly. So Tosfos says the only reason this Perek comes into our Masechta is because of this detail that it brings up Tchum, so it ends up in our Masechta. But really it belongs to Masechta Shabbos. Sagt the Gemara, Zug Echad in, the Tanna Kama says you could only put on one pair of tefillin at a time and bring it in Tfei Loy, but not more than one pair of tefillin. Leimet nan stamad like Rab Meir. Does that mean that our Mishnah here is a Stam Mishnah, not like the opinion of Rab Meir? Dik Rab Meir, if we would follow Rab Meir, Ha'amar Rab Meir says regarding a case where there was a fire that breaks out in the house and you want to empty out the house from clothing and things. So what did Rab Meir there say? Loivish kol mashiyachal ilbaish. You can put on as many layers of clothing as possible. V'oitav kol mashiyachal latif. You wrap yourself as many layers as you can. That now we learned olisham maitzi kol kli tashmishay. You take out into that area all of the different kli tashmish. We're not talking about the Rishus Rabbim, but you take out into a chotzer anything that you can wear. Loivish kol mashiyachal ilbaish. You wear as much as you can. Oitav kol mashiyachal latif. You wrap yourself as much as you can, and you bring it out. Now the Gemara says, wait a minute, you're saying that was Rab Meir. Vahi stam mimayde Rab Meir. How do you know that Mishnah there was Rab Meir? Tani Allah, because we learned in the Braisa, it said Rab Meir's name. Loivish umaitzi. Put on as many clothing as you can and bring it out. Upaishit, and then take him off, and v'loivish umaitzi, and then go back for more. And you put on as many layers as you can and bring out more. Upaishit, v'afila kalayim kulay, all day. You can take out as many layers as you want. Divrei Rab Meir. So Rab Meir holds that it's not just one layer. You can put on as many clothing. So why over here with the tefillin don't we say the same thing? That put on yourself as many pairs of tefillin that you could fit on your head, on your arm. Huh?
It's not Zman Tefillin, Shabbos.
We'll see soon. The Gemara will talk about Zman Tefillin. Wait, the Gemara is going to talk about this. So the Gemara, no. Amarave afila teimer Rab Meir. Our Mishnah can go according to Rab Meir as well. Why? Hasam derech malbushay kechayil. Over there, by wearing layers of clothing, it's the way a person wears these things in the weekdays. Shavua Rabbanan. The Rabbanan consider it like what you do in the weekdays. In the weekdays, a person wears more than one layer of clothing. V'hacha derech malbushay kechayil shavua Rabbanan. Over here as well, wearing tefillin on Shabbos to bring it in, Chachamim say that you can wear it the way you wear it in the middle of the week. The b'chayil kamed the boy lavosh. In the weekday, a person wears many layers. So therefore, to save and to bring out the clothing, Rabbanan also allowed him to bring out as many layers as he wants. And hacha the b'chayil nami zug echad in tfeiloi. In the weekday, a person only wears one pair of tefillin of Shabbos, one pair of tefillin that is, and not more. Linyanat salanami zug echad in tfeiloi. Same thing also on Shabbos. There's only one pair of tefillin you can wear and not more. So Rashi explains the answer of the Gemara over here is based on the fact that the Tanna Kama held that Shabbos is Zman Tefillin. Okay, so just like during the week you wear a pair of tefillin, Shabbos is also a Zman Tefillin, so you wear one pair of tefillin, but not more. A second pair of tefillin, that's not the derech. You don't wear two pairs of tefillin. That's what Rashi says. But we'll see, there'll be more in the Hemshech of the Gemara about this. But Vaila, that's what the Gemara says. The Tanna Kama holds that Shabbos is Zman Tefillin, therefore you wear one pair of tefillin only. Huh? Okay. The question is, though, if you have to wear two tefillin at the same time. We'll see soon in the Gemara. Huh? Right, there are some people that do it, yeah. Rabbi Gamliel says you can bring in two pairs at a time. My kasava. So what's the pshat? Why dafka two? Ikasava Shabbos man tefillinu. If he holds that Shabbos is a time to wear tefillin, so how many pairs of tefillin do you wear at once? Only one. Zugachad in tefilloi. So you should only be allowed to bring in one and not more. That's the way it's worn, one at a time, not more. Vikasava Shabbos lavs man tefillinu. If you hold that Shabbos is not a time of tefillinu mishum matzale, but in order to save the tefillin derech malbush sharule rabbanon. Rabbanan allowed you to put it on, to wrap it, and to wear it like a garment, like a tachshit, like a garment. So then I fill it tfei nami. So then even more than one pair. If Chachamim created this heter, although it's not zman tefillin, but as long as you're wearing it, you can bring it in. So then why only one? It should be why only two? That is, even 3, 4, as many as you can. And says the Gemara loylem kasava Shabbos lav zman tefillin. No, he argues with the Tanna Kama. He holds that Shabbos is not the time for tefillin. Chachamim only allow to wear tefillin not stam in any place of your body. You have to put on the tefillin in the place where you usually put on tefillin, and that's the way tefillin is usually worn. That's the tachshit of the tefillin. If you want to consider it to be like a garment when you're wearing it, it has to be in the place where it's usually worn, and that's why you could only bring in two. Fragt the Gemara, wait a minute. If that's the point, that only in the place where the tefillin is usually worn, hachi zug echad nami in and tefilloi, so that should be only one, not two. You have only place to wear one pair of tefillin, not more than one. So the Gemara says, no. Amashmo barav Yitzchak makem yesh berosh laniach by shtei tefillin. This is the famous line in the Gemara that there is space in the person's head for two pairs of tefillin. So therefore, he says you can bring in two pairs of tefillin.
Yeah, the Sfadim have many.
Yeah, they have two different pairs.
Very small.
Right.
But not four, I guess. Those are more.
There is space for two pairs of tefillin, so therefore, even though the mitzvah is one pair, but there is space for two, so therefore Chachamim said, although Shabbos is not as man tefillin, you can bring in two pairs of tefillin. So on the head, there's space for two pairs of tefillin. The yad,
didn't use our size tefillin.
No, for sure not. The Taisus talks about this, by the way, Taka. If you look here in Taisus, Makim Yesh Bereish for two pairs of tefillin, he talks about the shear of tefillin. That from this Gemara you could learn about how large a tefillin should be. That's boys. There's a tight. That's
from the Gemara already. It's giving this concept that there may be two different pairs that you should be yotze. Otherwise, why would you wear two pairs?
Why would a person do such a thing? Yeah. Yeah, sagt the Gemara. So this is benigay to the head that you can wear two pairs of tefillin, but. I'll think over here. The yad my ikalameimar. But how about on your arm? So the Gemara right now is assuming that on the arm there's only space for one pair of tefillin. Kid Rav Huna says the Gemara, no. We see Rav Huna said the Amar Rav Huna pa'amim she'adam ba min asada. Sometimes a person is coming from the field in his work, and don't forget in those times they would wear tefillin all day. But then he's working and he's coming from the field. The chavilah se'al rosh, and he wants to put a package on his head to carry it. He doesn't want the tefillin to be on his head while he's carrying something on his head. So he takes off his tefillin shel rosh and he wraps it on his arm. So we see that even on your arm there's space for two pairs of tefillin. So the Gemara says, no, lav dafke. You don't want to keep it on your head, and while you're carrying something on your head, so you're gonna be mevazed the tefillin, so you can put it on your arm. But it's not. There's no space for it really there in the makim tefillin, in the proper place where tefillin is supposed to be. There's no roy mi amar. Did he say that on your arm it's roy to have two pairs of tefillin there? So the Gemara says, yeah, Elo k'da Omar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak makom yesh berosh roy lanich by shtei tefillin. Just like he said that on the head there's space for two pairs of tefillin. Hachanami, we could also say makom yesh biyad roy lanich by shtei tefillin. On your arm there's also space to put on two pairs of tefillin as well. Tana de Bein Menashe. Now the Gemara brings the exact place where you put on the tefillin. Al yadecha zu kibaides. The tefillin has to be on the kibaides, which is right in the middle of your arm. The kibaides means the area where the basar of the person comes out a little bit. Okay, there's three parts. There's the top part, there's the lower part, and the middle. Sort of in the middle part where, by many people, the basar comes up a little bit. That's the place for the tefillin. Beinenecha zo katkoid. When it says beinenecha, it doesn't mean between the eyes, but it goes on the head, not the forehead. It goes on the head of the person. Heiche, where Omri de Berab Yane makim shemoiche shel tinik reifis. The place where the baby's head is soft. Okay, that's the place of the tefillin. Okay, but the tefillin, a lot of people do wear it even lower down. The Rebbe used to wear the tefillin pretty low down, even on the head. Yeah. Okay, so the Gemara is bringing up the makim of the tefillin because we said that there's yesh makim berosh and yesh makim bezraya, this place. So the Gemara brings up over here the makim of the tefillin. Okay, the hemshch of the Gemara will discuss more in detail exactly the machlokes of the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Gamliel regarding carrying in one pair, two pairs. The Gemara is going to have 4 or 5 pshatim how to explain that. It goes all the way down to the hemshch of the Amud. We'll clean it tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem.